It's good to see the whole fellowship getting together here and chatting and visiting back there. It's hard to get anybody in here. It's like herding cats, they said. That's a good thing, so it's really neat. Anyways, Phil and Ellen Coop, our ministry is with Ethno 360 Aviation. I noticed on this bulletin board you still have New Tribes Mission up there. That's our old name, so you need to change it to Ethnos 360. That's the new name for the same organization, so we don't mind it. A lot of our friends don't give up on the old name. Any rate, we're involved with this ministry, but I wanted to just share with you the fact that our roots in this church go way, way back. Ellen actually grew up in this area. This was her home church during college, and then we met in Bible school, and then we were married in this church 50 years ago. That's how long ago. So this is our 50th anniversary year in February. So there's a lot of roots that we have here that go way, way back. There's a couple of you may remember that. So I thought I'd just review a couple of pictures here. I don't know if anybody here even remembers us. So I thought I'd do a little flash from the past about us in ministry. We trained with New Tribes Mission back in that date and then deployed to the Philippines. And that's where we started our ministry. And you guys as a church began supporting us back in the 80s. So it's really neat, the ministry that you guys have had in our lives and in the reaching unreached people groups through our aviation ministry. We really appreciate that and are so thankful for the part you've had. Now, this is where our family is today. I won't go into all the details, but if you have a half an hour to ask Ellen about the grandkids, I'm sure she would love to tell you. So, at any rate, we'd love to chat with you about that. Visit. We're going to be here for most of the rest of the week and hope to be able, in your homes, be able to visit, whatever. So we look forward to any time. Anyways, moving on from family to ministry, I thought this picture is a good representation of who we are and what we represent. In the foreground are the tribal people there in Papua New Guinea. That's the most important thing to our ministry. That's why we're there. And behind them is the missionaries greeting. They just got off our helicopter, which is in the background. So we serve all these church planting ministries. My role is the CEO. I've been CEO since, 2011? And actually, we moved back in 1992 and began ministry there in leadership during that time. So our roles are administrative, leading the organization. So it's been a real privilege to see God bless this ministry and really grow it, and it's just amazing what God's done. So just to reflect back on our mission, advancing the spread of the gospel through aviation to see a thriving church for every people. Or we'll shorten it and say, using aviation to see a thriving church for every people. So that's what we're all about. We talk more about church planting than we do airplanes. And if you listen to the testimonies of our pilots, mechanics, and that's the why behind why we exist. So it's really neat to see God bless this ministry, move it forward. So just a quick review of it. Ethno 360 Aviation supports church planners from startup till a thriving church is standing on its own. Okay, that's how long we hold on. What we mean by that is the slide represents, here's the missionary rescuing the lamb. We're not the ones rescuing the lamb, but we're the ones holding the hand of the ones who are. So that's what this is. So we challenge all of our pilots and mechanics that come our way. We say, you know what? You need to be there for the long haul because it takes a long time to see a thriving church standing on its own 2 feet. So the more hardship that a missionary family must face every day of those 20 years, the less likely they will endure to the finish. Ethno 360 Aviation brings sustainability. A picture like this looks good on Facebook. It looks good in your parlor or whatever it might be. But this kind of life is not sustainable. Taking families, little kids, when we're working in such remote parts of the world, it's very difficult. So we try to overcome some of these transportation barriers. Here in Brazil, the Brazilian leadership team said to us, we have about a 50% attrition rate because of the difficulty of transportation, of travel. It is so hard, and some of them, they'll go 5 days by canoe like this, and then another day hiking to get to the remote villages where they're reaching tribal people for the Lord and planting a church. So we take that off the table with aviation, but it's much bigger than that. Think about the extreme isolation that they have out there, okay? If you're the wife out there and you're worried, all right, what if my husband comes down with malaria? What if one of my kids falls, breaks the leg? What kinds of health issues are we going to run into? Am I going to carry my husband out on my back for 5 hours, and then am I going to run the outboard motor in the canoe down through the rapids? So that isolation generates a huge amount of worry. We flew, or there was a couple that just came out before we implemented our helicopter program there. They came out 5 days by canoe to give birth to their first child, and they were dreading going back in. We flew them back, and within 30 minutes to their village, and then landed right in front of their front door with the helicopter. So that takes a lot of that stress off the table and allows them to sustain ministry long term. So that's a huge part of why we're there. This is our headquarters in Arizona, where Ellen and I are serving. This is just a small part of who we are. The vast majority of our staff and assets are overseas, as airplanes and pilots are serving around the world. So this is the program we're involved in. We serve in the country of Philippines, Indonesia, Papua New Guinea, and Brazil. So those are the main countries we're in. We have some other countries we're looking at expanding into, but not there yet. So here in Arizona, we train personnel in both technical and personal skills to achieve our mission. So the heart behind why we're doing this is very important. It's not just flying, but flying is a big part. Okay, so we provide extensive technical training in both fixed wing and rotor wing. So when I say fixed wing and rotor wing, does that make sense, those words? Fixed wing is airplane, rotor wing is helicopter. So here we are in the Grand Canyon. We do a lot of mountain flying, a lot of training for our pilots. Here's a couple of pilots here preparing a sling load, okay? So we train and we try to emulate all kinds of real world situations and with the helicopter and carry out whatever the missionary family might need. So here we are airlifting. Again, we can lift refrigerators, we can haul in water tanks, just regardless of what the load might be, we can get that in there to the village. So the mentoring happens on the job with each of our pilots and mechanics. They learn from experienced trainers. All of our trainers are former missionary pilots and mechanics overseas. So our goal is the long-term success of each member through personal development. So that spiritual side of it, personal development is really, really important to us. We also provide special classes for the wives, taught by those who have served overseas for many years. Thank you. The back row are pilots' wives, front row are students. So this is a family ministry in every way. The other thing we provide for the ministries overseas is the right aircraft for each ministry. So in some parts of the world, the fixed wing Kodiak, it's a 10-place turboprop, or the helicopter are best suited. Often they work together. The Kodiak does the heavy lifting long distance, and then the helicopter will do the shuttles in and out of the remote villages. Our helicopters are far more effective at, and I'm having a hard time reading it, my glasses. Helicopters are far more effective at serving the indigenous missionaries because of it eliminates the high cost, the years of building airstrips, all of that. So for that reason, we have twice as many helicopters as we do fixed wing. And it really helps serve especially the indigenous missionaries. Look at that little helipad. How long do you think it takes to build that? Other than a 1,500-foot runway in the mountains, big difference. Often even the expat missionaries, they say, you know what, I need to get busy on church planning. I don't want to waste my time for years trying to build an airstrip. And so the helicopter serves us best in really meeting the needs of the indigenous church missionaries that we're serving. So through flight subsidy, we provide equally affordable service to all members of the church planning team, regardless of the ability to pay. So the expat missionary, the white man, he pays more. The indigenous, maybe even national, there's different categories, and we charge each one based on what is fair in their economic situation. So if the tribal people that are sending out teachers, if they can only afford a chicken, that's what we'll do. We'll fly for the price of a chicken. So here's our demographics. The blue is the Westerners who can usually afford to fly. And you can see that in Brazil, the vast majority of the missionaries flying in Brazil are Brazilians. There's no point in us taking a helicopter to Brazil if the Brazilians can't afford to use it. So in every category, we make it affordable. So PNG, you see there's a high percentage of Westerners, whereas Philippines and Indonesia, the high percentage is of Indonesians. So it's a real privilege to be able to serve every nationality around the world. So in Arizona, our training aircraft, we have one R66 training helicopter. You see them working on it. We have a maintenance, in our R66 helicopter that we use for maintenance training. We basically buy a run-out helicopter, and then the team rebuilds it as part of their practice getting ready. And we have a Kodiak simulator there as well. The Cessna 206, we have for short field performance flying, so our pilots take that course. They do finish up training here with a Kodiak simulator, so this is a lot cheaper to train in. So there'll be about 40 hours of advanced training in our Kodiak simulator after they've succeeded in the Cessna 206. So just a little bit about where we're at. In the Philippines, we have 2 R66 helicopters. I like this picture. Would you rather go by Carabao or by helicopter? Very, very slow or very, very fast? Anyway, so we have a helicopter located on northern Luzon. We serve the church planting missionaries in that region. And then we have a helicopter based in Mindanao, and it serves the church planting missionaries there, plus a lot of the indigenous people. There's a lot of successful church plants among the Taulaandig, the Banwaon, etc. Those tribal groups that are thriving churches that are now sending missionaries, and then we are their flight program. That's the fun, seeing this go and be part of the multiplication. Those helicopters also are able to fly missionaries in the islands region as well, so we cover the entire country there. Papua New Guinea, we've got 3 Kodiaks serving there, 1 Kodiak simulator for training the pilots, and 2 R66 helicopters. And then we have a 3rd helicopter that just arrived. We just delivered the day we left McNeil to come here, so we didn't get to actually see it, but it's really neat that God has provided the 3rd one. We've been waiting almost 2 years for this helicopter because of the supply chain issues. It's taken so long for the company to deliver it. So it's all white. We'll be painting it our red and white colors, outfitting it for the field with everything from satellite tracking, you name it. All of that goes in there, preparing it to serve in Papua New Guinea. So that'll give 3 of those helicopters in Papua New Guinea. So Papua New Guinea, we're based in the Central Highlands region at Goroka. We repositioned to Wewak for the CPIC region, and we repositioned to Hoskins to do some of the islands flying. So we move aircraft around all the time, usually a team-up effort. The Kodiak and the helicopter both go, and then they service missionaries routinely in these areas. A lot of long-distance flying there. Brazil, we've got 1 R66 helicopter, and with lots of opportunity to grow. Venezuela, they've been asking us, the churches there have been asking us for help. We trained a pilot. He started having seizures, lost his medical, couldn't fly, so we're kind of back to square one on Venezuela. Not sure what we're going to do there. Canada, Ethnos Canada's been asking for help on Baffin Island. They're just starting ministries up there, and they want us to fly this route all around Baffin Island to different villages there. They want to start ministries at Baffin Island, and we want to really help them out doing that. So we brought VR goggles with us. We'd like to show you a little bit of our ministry if you have a chance. This is a three-dimensional experience that we want to share with you. So at any rate, thank you for being a part of this ministry that we've had all these years, and we really, really appreciate what you've done to see us through. So thank you very much.
Thanks very much, Phil, for that. Very informative about what's going on with Ethnos 360 Aviation and what they're doing in the world. And we appreciate their ministry very much. Phil mentioned about the VR goggles. We do have 3 evenings set aside this week. If you want to sign up, we have a few places left. And if you still want to sign up, you haven't done it yet, see my wife, Donna, and she'll get you plugged in somewhere. But that'll be Monday, Tuesday, and Thursday, the opportunities that are still available. So at this time, we're going to have Jeff. We'll have him come up and tell us what's going on in that neighborhood. Thanks, Jeff.
Good morning, everyone. That was really interesting, Phil. I just keep thinking, there are people, so many people in the world that need the gospel. The only way to get there is through helicopter and plane. And then once missionaries get there, the only way to support them is to get there through helicopters and planes. And it's just, that's incredible ministry. And I'm so thankful for what you guys are doing. Thanks for inviting us up this weekend. I was thinking, wow, they've been connected with you for 50 years. I thought when I was going to say, we've been connected with all of you guys for 25 years, that was going to sound like a lot, but now not so much. No, this church has been supporting our family and ministry with ABWE for the past 25 years. Thank you. When we came, our children were very small, and they're not so small anymore. Let's see here. Jenna is married to Caleb, and they have 3 kids. And next to that is Jared. He's married to Chelsea, and they have 2 kids, Theodore and Oliver. And then Jaden just graduated from college, and he's engaged to be married to Genevieve. And then Jalen just graduated from high school. She's now a student at Lancaster Bible College. And in fact, Jody and I were both planning to be here this weekend. And then it turned out that was the weekend for the Parents' Weekend at Lancaster Bible College. And we thought, with Jillian, we might want to have one of us go there and be a support to her. And it turned out that was probably a good decision. So Jody's there with Jillian this weekend. And so sorry that she's not with me, with all of us, but she sends her greetings as well. Over the years, so when we came here the first time, Pastor Jeff Halstead was pastoring, and we were heading to Slovakia. We were appointed with ABWE in 1999. We moved to Slovakia, which is in Central Europe, in 2001, and we were church planters with them until 2010. The Lord led us back initially because of some health issues that we needed to deal with for Jody. And during that time, we were also engaged in ministry with ABWE based out of our headquarters, and the Lord took us to the Middle East and North Africa on a few different trips, and our hearts began to really be burdened for that region. The Lord opened up a door, and we were invited to serve as a regional director for the Middle East and North Africa. And so in 2016, we moved to Portugal to be closer to the region. And also shortly after that, we began serving our Western European region as well. And then in 2018, we were asked to serve in the current role. And so these are, I just said that in like 3 minutes, 5 minutes maybe, less. Those are big decisions to make, to move overseas a couple of different times. And I share that to say this, that from the beginning for Jody and me, these verses have been kind of guiding verses for us, kind of a compass. Familiar to you, I'm sure. Trust in the Lord with all your heart, and lean not on your own understanding. In all your ways, acknowledge him, and he will direct your paths. And so, as we've made big decisions, we've tried to honor the Lord and trust in him, and he's given us a real confidence that, you know what, we're not going to know everything, but he will direct our paths, and we can have confidence in him and trusting in him. And so I share that with you. Those verses are relevant for all of us. We're not going to know everything. Trust in the Lord with all your heart. Lean not on your own understanding. In all your ways acknowledge him, and he will direct your paths. In our ministry, so in our current role, it took us back to the international headquarters with ABWE. And I would say, as we try to describe our ministry, I put it in these 4 categories. Mobilization, which is like recruitment of new missionaries, training for cross-cultural overseas missions. Jody is very much a part of that ministry. Missionary care, when missionaries get to the field, they need, in some places, support coming through helicopters and planes, and every missionary needs support and encouragement in their ministries in a lot of different ways, and then also in the area of leadership. And I want to illustrate all of that through talking about a family that this church supports. And I'm going to dive into that little illustration in a couple of minutes, because I think it illustrates different aspects of our ministry and also hopefully be an encouragement to you, as I know this church supports them. But first, I want to talk about ABWE's Open Initiative, and I should have compared notes with Paul. Is this a major thrust of your message? No. Okay. All right. I'm going to preach from the Bible. That's a good idea. That's a good idea. I was about to say that Paul Davis inspired us at ABWE to launch the Open Initiative that was about 5 years ago. And the goal of that was to ignite Great Commission thinking and action among missionaries and churches, and to really focus in on unreached people groups in that effort. And that was already mentioned a few minutes ago. When we talk about unreached people groups, we're not talking about the unsaved people at the local gas station. It's not an unreached people group. We're talking about a people group with less than 2% of that community, that people group being language and culture and so forth, less than 2% being evangelical Christians. That is an unreached people group. And so we set out to identify 7 unreached people groups that we could target and pray about and send teams to in 7 years. And just to share a little more about that, this is actually a 2-minute video introducing the Open Initiative. It's awesome that ABWE has the Open Initiative, and at the same time we have another initiative. It's the 938 initiative. It's a prayer initiative. And you can imagine that it's coming from Matthew 9, verse 38, that we just read, that pray earnestly to the Lord of the harvest to send out laborers into his harvest. So what we're asking people to do is to take out their phones and set an alarm for 9:38. And when that alarm goes off, it's a reminder of Matthew 9:38 to pray the Lord of the harvest. If you're thinking about what is one application I can take away this week from the missions conference, one of those applications is to pray the Lord of the harvest to send out missionaries. And setting your phone to 9:38 is a practical way, twice a day, even it's 9:38 twice a day, right? Morning and evening, to pray the Lord of the harvest, to send out laborers. And with the reality in mind of that 7,541 unreached people groups. God's not calling all of us to go to them. He may call some of us. But all of us can pray that God would send laborers to those who have never heard, to the unreached. And there's nothing more impactful than we can do than to pray to the Lord of the harvest to send out laborers. And it's a joy and privilege really for Jody and me in our ministry to be able to come alongside people like the Days. And there are 200 missionaries serving in Europe, the Middle East, and North Africa, and to help them in whatever ways that we can, help them get to the field, help them to be able to thrive, to be on teams that are healthy, to receive the encouragement, the support, the resources. Our goal is that they have fruitful, joyful, enduring ministries, doing what God's called them to do as long as He would have them there. That's our ultimate goal. And as we are looking at the month of October, there's a couple of prayer requests I'd like to share with you. First, ABWE has a 24-hour demo in Harrisburg on October 17th and 18th, and then in New Brunswick, Canada, in November 21 and 22. And this 24-hour demo is just from Friday evening till Saturday evening. Anybody can come. I invite any of you to come if you'd like to. Explore missions. You just need to get there. There's a very small fee of, I think, $25 or $30. The rest we take care of, and you just learn about missions and how ABWE is doing missions as well. And we talk to people about what is the next step that God might want you to take in the Great Commission. And so anywhere from 50 to 100 people come typically. And so we just pray that God gives us great opportunities for conversation. And very often people are taking next steps, whether that is in prayer, whether that is in making a trip, or going short-term or even long-term. And so these are things that we're praying about well in advance of these events, and I invite you to pray with us for that. And then also in October 27 to 31 is our new missionary orientation. It's a pretty long process to apply to be a missionary, and this is kind of the culmination of that. When they come for this 5 days of orientation and appointment with ABWE, and we are working with 7 individuals who are coming to join our teams in Europe, in Central Asia, in the Middle East and North Africa. There's others coming as well to the orientation, but my focus primarily is on those individuals. And then Jody's also very involved in helping to set up that whole conference. And we just ask you to pray for that as well, because we need the Lord to be directing in their lives and confirming His call on their lives even through that process. Let's see here. All right, I know we're going to have questions later today, but I have a couple of minutes here, I think, before we need to be done. Does anybody have any questions that you'd like to ask early on in the day? Otherwise, I'm going into another story. All right. If you do, just raise your hand. If the story sounds boring, just raise your hand and the story ends and we go to your question, okay? On this trip that we just made, I mentioned before we used to live in Portugal. And before we left in 2018, one of our ABW missionaries, Adam Gibson, and then another missionary they were working together. He wasn't with ABWE, but they were working together, and they decided we would like to work together in planting a church, an international church in our community that would be English-speaking for the first service and Portuguese-speaking for the second. And that was just being talked about at the time, and they started to have services. So Jody and we were attending a different church, but one Sunday we decided, let's go to this church plant. Let's just go visit. So we showed up. We knew where it was. Nobody was there. So we called up Bo. You know Bo, you met him there. And I'm like, hey, is there church today? And I just saw Bo a couple of weeks ago, so he told me this story. I almost forgot it. He said, actually we had canceled church that day. Nobody was going to make it. It was so small, and everybody called up. They weren't going to be there, and they were going to cancel. But then when I called him and said, hey, we came to church, he said, come on up. He hung up his phone and told his wife, we're having church. Jeff and Jody are here. Set up the chairs. Let's pull this together. And he told me, God used that in his life. He said, they were kind of convicted, and he said, we have never canceled a service, and we'll never cancel a service, like that. And to go back, when we were there visiting a few weeks ago, they were already in their second location. Thankfully, Portugal has pretty nice weather because the room was full. They were sitting out overflow in both services. There was a great building that opened up on the corner, perfect location. Portugal is kind of an expensive place. So they needed to raise $40,000 to buy this building. And the Lord provided all but $40,000 of it. And that weekend, while we were there, another $20,000 came in. And I thought, I remember there's this old account that missionaries used to give to called the PACE Fund. And I wonder if there was any money left in it, So I went back, and there's money left in this PACE Fund. So I put together this request, and quickly it was approved, and we were able to send over another $10,000. And it was such an encouragement to see just a few years ago, they were canceling services because nobody was showing up, and how God was building that church. And now it's 7 years later, they're moving into their third building. The Lord provided all those funds. They're a growing church. They're seeing people saved and baptized, and seeing what God is doing brings a lot of joy. And I just share that to say God is building his church. Jesus is building his church around the world. And not just over there somewhere, right here in Indian River as well. And I trust that you're seeing that, and that thank you for being, again, part of our ministry. And all the ministries that we're doing across Europe, the Middle East, and North Africa, you guys are a part of that. We're able to do that because of your partnership. And so I wish I had time to share tons of other stories because you're a part of those ministries. So thank you so much again for praying for us, supporting us, and we look forward to the rest of the day together. Thank you.
Well, thanks very much, Jeff, for presenting all that's been going on in your area of ABWE. It's exciting to see what God's doing in the world. Many, many souls being saved as a result of these missionaries going out and God's grace.